Hello. So today I want to tell you about the game Intent to Kill. And this was in 25th Century's one of their import campaigns, and I purchased it from that. I know they have another import campaign coming up. They've revealed the games that are going to be in it, and it's spectacular, so watch out for that. But this is a game where one person is a murderer and one or more people is a detective. It works great at just two. One murderer, one detective. However, you could play with two detectives that are working together a la Law and Order style. So in this game, you have a city where crime is happening. Yes, it is a beige board. This is a very colorful game. Don't be freaked out by that. So over here, we have 5 slots because 5 murders are going to occur, and they are going to occur either over 5 or 6 rounds, depending on what the murderer chooses to do, a maximum of 6 rounds. So we will have a detective, and we will have a murderer, and we will have a city that is struggling to get through this. We are going to have a wide variety of civilians that are just milling about this city, one of whom is the murderer, and some of whom are loyal to the murderer, so they can lie for the murderer. Everyone else must tell the truth. So we have all of these civilian cards, but we're just going to take 20 for any game. Everybody else, thanks for playing. We'll see you next time. So what's going to happen is these will be shuffled up, and the murderer is secretly going to draw one from the deck to find out who they are. They have a piece of paper. I have a piece of paper. If I'm the detective, everything is written on their own paper. Okay, great. They know who the detective is. Then we are going to place these out. We get 2 on all of the edges, 1 in the center, because people don't really want to be, like I said, nope, there we go. Okay. Only in the corners do we get 2. Everywhere else we get 1. At no point can we ever have more than 3 civilians in a location. So everybody is set up. Then we have 9 different groups of people within the city. The murderer is going to take 3 of them, look at them, and decide who do they want to be on their side, their loyalists essentially, that can lie for them. They're going to decide, okay, it's these people, and then the other 2 will go back to the box, never to be seen again. Now, this is not a murderer who's just out here willy-nilly taking out anyone they want. No, no, no. They have a code, essentially, or they have a reason for doing what they're doing. And there are 2 decks, they're identical, of 10 cards that tell the motivation for the murder. So we're going to use 6 for any game. And they will be identical for both the murderer and the detective. And having 2 decks is just for simplicity. So the detective gets theirs. So the murderer looks through it and decides, what is my motivation going to be? And maybe I want to be the spy. So this says all victims must be murdered in blocks with buildings. So that's the only stipulation that I have to follow, is they must be in blocks with buildings. And I obviously can't take out myself if I'm the murderer, because that would sort of defeat the game. So I know this is my motivation. Again, write it on my piece of paper. We're all good. The detective gets the same 6 motivations that I just looked at, and they're going to use this deduction by who is taken out to see if any of these motives don't fit, because they not only have to figure out who I am, but what my motive is. So for example, this one said, there must be civilians of all 3 different builds among the victims. So each victim has information on it. It has their gender, it has their age, it has their build, it has their height. So if I notice that we're getting, lower into the game and they've only murdered people of 1 build, then that's clearly not it. So then I know, okay, that's not their motivation. They may be, all victims must be from different social groups. As soon as 2 murders happen from the same social group, I know that's not their motivation. So I'm using all of this to deduce what their motivation is. The murderer also has these cards, so they're going to try and take people out in a way that it fits as many motivations as possible to not give me information. So that's where it's that real back and forth and is super interesting in that way, because I'm trying to not give myself away as the murderer and the detective's trying to figure me out. So we'll have different buildings around the board. There's going to be fire stations and there's going to be hospitals and different types of things like that. There's going to be, I think it's like City Hall. Oh no, there's going to be a driver, a police station, a hospital, and a fire station. And there's specific ways that you set these up around the board that the rules will tell you. So the reason that these buildings are there is because they let the detective take different actions. This is the detective. The detective also gets to move around the board in certain ways. So how do the rounds of the game work? Well, good news. We get little player aids that tell us. Now, there's two modes to this game. There's the logic mode, which is what I'm showing you right now. And then there's some more things you can add in. So the murder phase, the first thing the murderer gets to do is they get to intimidate two civilians. And that means if they're intimidated, the detective cannot question them. So they are maybe going to intimidate here and here for whatever reason. That's who they're going to intimidate. And then they decide who they are going to murder. Now, remember, what was my motivation? I am having to murder people as the spy, that they have to come from a block with a building. So let's take out the ball player. So we're going to take out the ball player. And then we are going to know that that is where a murder just occurred. If there were any other civilians in that spot, they would go away because they're not going to want to hang around a murder scene. So that's what the murderer does. So then we go to the detective. They have their initial response. They go to the crime scene. Then they get to pick from a selection of actions. They get to pick two. So they can question civilians. They can go and do a police station action, which lets them, it tells you all right here, a police station action, place a surveillance token onto a civilian in this block or an adjacent block. So I can place that, and even though they're intimidated, it will let me question them. You can do the driver, question one unintimidated civilian on the block or adjacent block. A hospital action, comfort one intimidated civilian on the block. So if there were a hospital, I can flip them back over. And a fire station, draw a random token from the social group stack. You can move each civilian in that group once. So if I do that, I get to see a press person. So I can move all of the people who are members of the press one spot. But I now know the press is not loyal to the murderer, so the press cannot lie to me. So this is good information to have. So everything is deduction. So the police is going to do their thing. They're going to gather their information. And remember, only the one group can lie when asked questions. Everyone else must tell the truth. So what kinds of questions can I ask? Here's the questions that I can ask. I can say, is the murderer female? They have to tell me yes or no, as long as they're from one of the groups that tells the truth. If they are the murderer from one of the other groups, they don't have to tell the truth. I can say, are they in their 20s, 40s, or 60s? Because there's an age on everyone. Do they have a small, medium, or large build? I'd have to pick one. Do they have a medium build? I can't ask all three. Same thing with the age. Are they a tall height? So they can lie if they are the murderer, the person of interest, or part of the social group. Everyone else must tell me the same. So those are the questions that I can ask and the things I'm doing. I can also move around a little bit within the city and do some things. And then we go to the city phase of the game. So in the city phase, I can comfort civilians. If I'm in a spot with intimidated civilians, I can comfort them, turn them back over, and then the murderer gets to do their thing. They take so these are all shuffled all the time. They take a social group token. So again, we know someone who's in there. And they may then move those people one spot if they want to, as long as it doesn't put more than 3 in an area. And then I get to do the same thing. So this gets shuffled back in. So there's a chance that I could actually end up drawing the same one, move them once, and that was one round of the game. Now we're going to do this until 5 murders have occurred. 1 round and 1 round only. The murderer may choose to not commit a murder. It could be because they're not able to based on the parameters of the game, or it may be that they're trying to throw me off. In order for the detective to win the game, they must figure out who the murderer is and what their motivation was. If they cannot figure out their motivation, they lose the game. In order for the murderer to win, they need to get away with it by the detective either not figuring out the murderer or not figuring out the motivation. So this is one of those games that at first you're like, oh my gosh, that's so much information. I don't know what to do. But as you get going, you start to make connections. Things start to click. You start to move yourself around in such a way that you're like, oh, if I can figure out this, then that's going to put this, and this in place. The murderer is also looking at things and going, oh, if I do this, maybe it'll lead them to believe that. So there's a lot of mind games going on, but it is a really great deduction game. And adding in then the extra abilities and the extra things in the more like advanced mode, or what they call intuition mode, just takes it up a level. So this is a really fun game. I don't think I'd ever play it with more than 3. Like I said, you could have 2 detectives and 1 murderer, but it is a fantastic game. It looks super cool. And it is a great time. So especially for a 2-player game, this is perfect. So I would love to know, have you played it? What do you think of it? Give me a like and a follow, and I'll keep bringing you more board game content. Thanks. Bye.